to another college football session here with the Game Addicted Show. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, make sure you check out my Twitch channel because that's where I do all my live streams, live coverage. We could have a conversation about any team you'd like. I could break down why your team's the best. I could break down why they're the worst. That's what we do here, where we judge teams not on the color of their jerseys, but the value of their resume. That is what we try to accomplish here at the Game Addicted Show. And if you're on Twitch, welcome. This is going to be my main platform from here on out. But if you miss part of this video or this live stream, make sure to head over to my YouTube channel. But really, Twitch is the place to be. That's what we want to do. That's where we want to be. So, with that being said, crazy week on week 3 of college football. We have new rankings heading into week 4. A lot of big changes here in our VPI rankings. And as you see, as we continue to move week to week, rankings early on, still week 4, we need a little more data, just going all over the place, right? A lot of these teams only played 3 games, some played up to 4, so it's kind of hard to rank them. So we're going to go through this. We're going to see where they are here in our VPI formula, Victory Production Index. If you're new to this channel, just know it's my thing, something I made up by look at teams' strength of schedule, their total offense, total defense. We mesh it all together, and that's what gives us our VPI rankings. So we're going to break down a few of these teams. We're going to see where they are here in our rankings and where they are on the national polls. So without further ado, let's jump into week 4 college football rankings. Oh yeah. First up, coming in at number 25, we have South Alabama. South Alabama not ranked anywhere in top 25 polls, but ranked here. Number 25 in our VPI rankings. Number 25 in your heart. That makes no sense. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, if you look at South Alabama, what puts them onto the top 25 is the fact that they are 3-0. Their strength of schedule, garbage. Ranked 122nd at 130 teams. Strength of production, also garbage. Here's 112. But ultimately, when you're comparing them to a lot of teams that are also playing Division II schools, they played Division II school here. Having an undefeated record, and there's actually only, I think, I'd have to see here. Let's clear this filter. Oh wow, I can't even see. Let's undo that. I'd have to pull up my database how many teams are left that are undefeated, but a big part, especially because early on, because each win accounts for 33% of your rankings. It's any team that has one loss is hit hard early on because, again, that's made up 33% of their total rankings. So, yeah, a loss would really hurt early on. So that's a big part why Southern Alabama, even though they have, a really bad strength schedule and strength production, that's why they're basically ranked there because they're undefeated. So, South Alabama cracks our top 25. Moving on to number 24, Kentucky. Kentucky is interesting because I think last week they were like top 10. I think the first week they're like number 2 or 3. I mean, they were really high up in our rankings. And as I was mentioning, I don't think Kentucky, we're on Kentucky now, is probably that great a team. And as the season starts to play on, you're seeing them drop more and more in the rankings, which again is a production of, in this case, a very weak strength of production. The teams that they're playing have really weak offenses or defenses. So ranked 122nd out of 130 teams there. They just finished being a Division II school, which if you're new to this, I treat Division II schools, or FCS schools, I should say, as teams that hold no value. This season's kind of an exception when it comes to this, but generally the years I've been doing this, FCS schools have little to almost no success when it comes to playing against Division I schools. So I treat them as winless teams. As you see here, I put a 0-12 record, and so they add nothing really to when you beat them. But if you get upset by them, which teams like Washington, teams like was it Virginia? What I know there's been teams being upset. I don't think it was Virginia, but Um, but yeah, there are a few teams that are being upset by Division two schools, and they're getting hit hard in our VPI rankings. So that's why, because Kentucky beat them, it really adds no value, which is why they took such a big dip in our VPI rankings here. So will they continue to fall? We will see as season plays on. But this week, Kentucky, number 24. Speaking of number 24, in the AP polls, UCLA, our Bruins, my Bruins, school I didn't go to, but major fan of, they were ranked number 24, but you will see they are out of our rankings here in VPI, and it's, again, because even though Fresno State, which is not ranked in here, again, Fresno State loss accounts for 33% of their data, so that's why they got kicked out. In fact, let's see how far back UCLA fell, just as we're jumping through here. So yeah, UCLA fell from 13 all the way to 38th in their VPI rankings. So yeah, that explains it. But, plenty of time for the Bruins to climb right back into it. And they're playing against Stanford, who in this case, you see, is ranked 35th. So pretty close in VPI rankings. I am so upset, though, by the way, that that they're going to be showing that game in the Pac-12 network. Like, it's too big of a game to show on there. I'm pretty upset about it. So we'll see what this new what's called commissioner of the Pac-12 does when it comes to TV contracts coming up. Moving on here, Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina actually is in the top 25, ranked at number 17 in our AP polls. And yeah, it's not too far off here with the Sun Belt Conference team, ranked at number 23. Again, very weak. Same thing with Kentucky. Same thing we're seeing with South Alabama. Coastal Carolina is having a really weak strength of schedule and a really weak strength of production. But they are 3-0 against teams not very good. Division II school, Kansas, Buffalo, not a strong strength schedule, but they are 3-0. And again, as they teams start to get further into their schedules, you will start seeing some major shifts from teams like this that will probably start falling off. But we'll see how it plays out. Next, we have Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a team that's finally getting respect this year. Every year I've done this, and this is only year 3 of me doing this. They've always been, between top 10, top 15 team, and really always underrated, and in either the polls or the playoff committee's polls. But as you see, they are not doing great as far as stats, but being 3-0 against at least one Major 5 conference school with Indiana win. But again, strength schedule not good. Their strength production also not good. But that's where they're at. Moving on to Utah State. Beating Washington State. My goodness. Dude, the Pac-12 has been getting pummeled in these non-conference games. But strength schedule a little bit better. I think it's behind Kentucky so far in strength schedule because Kentucky was 94th to 107, so they probably had the second highest, maybe third highest we've seen so far. And strength production, really bad teams are beating, but again, they are undefeated, so that's why they are in our top 25. Moving on to the Big 12 Conference. Yeah, see, look at these kinds of schedules. I mean, they're absolutely garbage. Look at these teams, what they're playing. Again, they're top 25 now because, they're undefeated and there's not much data to go off of. But I expect this to change drastically when they get in conference play. So you have them beating Houston, a Division II school, and Florida International. Strength schedule, pretty bad. Strength of production, pretty bad. Look at their total offensive defense. Pretty great there, though. But these two numbers I just have just for a show. They don't calculate into anything here. As far as the VPI formula, I just have it there just to show. But they really bear nothing when we're showing these teams. That we're looking at their opponents, not the team itself. When it comes looking at how to calculate this VPI formula. Moving on to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is, I think they are ranked, right? I Guess not. Look at that. Giving Lane Kiffin respect, even though he deserves none of it. So far, the best team with the strength of schedule and strength of production of 93 and 83, respectively. You have them beating Louisville. Looks like that's a solid win. Division II school, again, week's strength of schedule there, and Tulane. But they have the number one overall offense, so that's pretty amazing. We'll see what happens when they start playing against better teams, because again, the teams that they're playing have a really low strength of production. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. This is actually a really good example of that, because you have a team that has such a great offense, mediocre defense, but offense is number one. If they're playing, whatever points they're playing, obviously they're probably hurting that team's total defense, I should say, maybe even their total offense. And that could be a factor as well, where you see a correlation where the team itself has really high production, and obviously, since we're looking at their opponent's resume, their opponent's defense would suffer in this case, which would hurt their strength of production. So this is a really interesting dynamic as we're looking at this. It's good to have all this data up here, because it kind of gives you a more complete picture of how teams are really stacking up against each other. So yeah, I think that's a really good analysis there. So Ole Miss, number 19 here, not in the top 25 polls, which kind of surprises me. Oh, I'm sorry, they're number 13. I just saw them here. They're right underneath Notre Dame. So I apologize about that. Ole Miss is in the top 25, so it's 6 spots ahead in the AP polls, which might be accurate. You have to look at the grand scheme of things. We're narrowing it down 25 teams using strictly data, no opinion whatsoever, out of 130. So within 6 spots, pretty good. It shows that there isn't a massive difference of opinion from the polls versus what the data is actually showing. So good on Ole Miss. I don't know, man. I just do not like Lane Kiffin. I don't like the SEC in general. I will not be shy about how I dislike that conference, but it's fine. Here is another interesting team. American Athletic Conference. Memphis generally does very well when it comes to these rankings. Big win over an SEC school. And this is probably a big reason why they dictate such a high ranking here for Memphis. And looking at this, I don't see Memphis in the AP top 25. So shows that there's not much respect there for the Tigers. But even though Mississippi State, they are coached by Mike Leach. They are 2-1, and what you really have to look at is your opponent's opponent. That's probably what's contributing a lot to their strength of schedule being 99, and more or less I was looking at their strength of production being a little better. So solid all around. Good on the American Athletic Conference. Usually you see 2 to 3 teams from that conference on here every year and rank pretty high. Usually they're pretty underrated when it comes to the AP and the playoff polls. Another team that was on nobody's radar but deserves a little bit of respect, and that's here with Maryland. Maryland beat West Virginia, and this shows how this all kind of connects, because we're looking at your strength schedule now, and also strength production. We're looking at your opponent and your opponent's opponent. So because West Virginia was able to pull up an upset over Virginia Tech, which I do believe was a top 25 team a week ago, or if not the first week, I can't remember. That victory helps propel some of these stats here, and also being Illinois, who plays in the Big Ten Conference, that's going to help boost your stats. So okay, not great strength production or strength of schedule, but solid rankings in a team that a lot of people probably underlooking early in the season. So we'll see how things play out. Next, looking at Liberty. Liberty generally does very well in these VPI rankings. I don't see them on here at all in the AP polls. Where they're really making their mark, it looks like, is by their strength of production. The teams that they're playing have pretty solid offensive defenses, at least comparative to everyone reviewed before them. So the strength of schedule is still not good, 101 and 130 teams. But I think since they're 3-0 and beating teams that are more productive, it says a lot. So that could be a big contributing factor why they're ranked number 16. We'll see how that changes week to week. I'm really curious on this team. Usually they do very well. Oklahoma, a team that you think would be number 4. And here's the thing. You have Oklahoma, who struggled against a 1-2 Tulane, right? You had them play a Division II school follow. And then a struggling Nebraska team who, yes, is 2-2, 500. But look at the strength of schedule, 109. So when you're looking at these rankings, it's not looking at how good the team you think they are as far as by the talent what they have. This is a resume-based model. What have they done in the field? Who have they played? And how good are those teams that they've played? And if we're looking at just their resume and that from that perspective, this ain't gonna cut it. These sort of wins, I mean, at least for the first 3 games of the season, isn't what's going to get you in the top 2 or 3. This is why they're ranked a lot lower. And again, as long as they continue to win, the wins will start adding up and their stats will improve, which will lead to higher rankings. You guys are going to see. But that's, if you're wondering why they're so low, that's why. Moving on to a team that really surprised me with the week 1 win over Stanford, and they're keeping this thing going. They've played Division II school, played Nevada, which is 2-1, so I don't know how good Nevada is, but early on in the season, here he is, huge jump in strength of schedule. Again, because you have to remember, Stanford went on to beat Vanderbilt, plays in the SEC, went on to beat USC, who was a top 25 team. So, and USC beat Washington State. Again, all this about playing your opponent and your opponent's opponents all ties into this. That's why the strength schedule is so much higher than everybody else. Even though these teams directly you might be too impressed by, you have to look at the entire picture. So, looking at these 3 wins, yes, their production of these teams aren't that great, but because of this, Kansas State may be 25 in AP polls, but at least early on in the season, shows they probably should be a lot higher. So we'll see. Another team that is not ranked, Rutgers, beating Temple, beating Syracuse from the ACC, and a Division II school. Again, strength of schedule is not great, but it's ultimately because of the strength of production. The teams that they're currently playing are producing pretty solid numbers. So right down the middle of the road, so ranked 59. So because those teams are really productive, that's why Rutgers is currently sitting at number 13. Speaking of teams that are working their way up the rankings, though, let's talk about Alabama. I want to say in week 1 or week 2, Alabama. I think last week, Alabama finally was ranked in their VPI polls, but you have to look at who they played. You know, you had Miami, who in week 1 was 0-1. You know, so like Miami might be a better team than that, but as of right now, they were they're a winless team. So that's why the only data you have to go off of is a winless team. So of course Alabama wouldn't be ranked, and they go on. Miami wins game. They play Division II school to beat that, and then I think I want to say at this point they probably still weren't ranked. Maybe they were, but by now they're week 3. They go on. They finally beat a solid opponent, and they jump up in our rankings. Strength schedule is okay, but the strength production of the teams they beat, specifically with Miami and Florida, that's what gives Alabama our number 12 ranking. And yes, I understand they're ranked number 1, but you have to consider when going as far back as they were in our rankings to continue to climb shows that as they continue to win games, add up those wins, they're going to continue to move up. So we're getting, I think within another 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to get pretty close to what's being represented by the AP polls and give us a better idea of which teams are really overrated or underrated. So I'm not saying Alabama's overrated, but what I am saying at this point in time, with the resume that they have, they're heading in the right trajectory. So next, let's jump into a Mountain West team, and ranked number 11. San Diego State, they are not ranked in top 25 at all. Probably should be, because if you look at this, I know that New Mexico State, usually a pretty terrible team every year, beating Arizona, who is 0-3, but is a Power 5 conference opponent, and then beating Utah, which is generally a great team, year in, year out. I think just 2 years ago, Utah was ranked number 5 going into the playoffs, or on their way to the playoffs until they got stomped by Oregon in the Pac-12 conference game. Had they won that game, I think they had a good shot making it to the playoffs, but because they lost. They kept the Pac-12. The Pac-12 out of the playoff that year, and yeah, I mean Utah's been tough every year, so that's a good win, and it shows here in our strength of schedule. Again, most likely because these teams, I think they both played BYU and both lost to BYU. I want to say I'll have to check. In fact, why don't we check that down? Pac-12. We'll look at Arizona here at the bottom. Yeah, Arizona did lose to BYU in week 1. So, yeah, that is your explanation. Again, you're looking at your opponent and your opponent's opponent. So, big reason why San Diego State is number 11. Really great strength of schedule, strong strength of schedule early on in the season. And I think it's the best strength schedule so far the teams have reviewed. And then strength production, not great, but still, I think very deserving of being, at the very least, a top 25 team. Ranked this high, we'll see as if we get more data in, but that's where they're at. Here's a team that is a great example of what happens when they were ranked number 1, very deserving. It was a week ago because they beat Ohio State, but had a huge drop. I mean, they dropped 9 all the way to number 10, dropped 10 spots, all because they played such a weak opponent with the FCS school. So again, this shows the importance of playing a good strength of schedule, playing against teams that have high production with high strength production. So could Oregon recover? Absolutely. Plenty of games left in the season, but this really shows the power of this formula where it shows that you get punished if you schedule weak teams. Yes, you might be 12-0, and you're thinking, oh, well, they're undefeated. They should be in the playoffs. Well, really should they? That's what we want to look at when we're working with this formula here. The team that I don't think anybody had anywhere close to top 25 here is with undefeated Army. Big reason by this, as you see, their strength of schedule, even though you're looking at Georgia State, you're looking at Western Kentucky. Let's dissect this team. So UConn has been getting their butt whooped, right? 0-4. Now let's look. UConn's an independent school. Let's look at UConn here. This shows into why you have to look at strength of production, because look at the teams that they lost to. A 3-0 Army, right? A 2-1 Purdue, a 3-1 Fresno State, and then they even lost to a Division II school. But these three right here, solid opponents. So when you're looking at your opponent's data, that's actually going to be a boost for you for a team that you beat, right? Because this team, maybe isn't as bad as we think. They're pretty bad, but the fact they're getting beat up by pretty good opponents shows that, even though you're being a winless team, maybe if they're switched scheduled with another team, they might actually have a few more wins. Hard to make the case here with UConn specifically, because obviously they lost even to a Division II school, but just looking at these three other losses, looking at that data, that's what's helped contribute to Army being in such a high ranking here early on. Next, if we look at like Western Kentucky, it would be great to be able to isolate teams. I'll have to build that into my formula here. I don't know if Western Kentucky plays. That would be great. Oh, I think they play for the MAC, right? Wow. I do not know who Western Kentucky plays for. Conference USA. There they are. Western Kentucky. Yeah, only losses to 3-0 Army. Anyways, I'm not going to go through all these, but I just kind of wanted to show how your opponents, that's how they contribute to your rankings. So, anyways, just wanted to highlight that there. Moving on to a team that I think will really shoot up here in the rankings. Now, here they're ranked number 8. In our AP Top 25, they're ranked number 16. That's with Arkansas. A team I wish I did not bet against because they put a shellacking on 7-1 Sark over there at Texas. beating Rice, beating Georgia Southern. Big reason why they're number 8 on here. Solid, really good strength of schedule. I mean, Texas. I mean, I know they're coached by 7-win Stark, but it is a big name school. A school that the schedule's tough, and looking at their strength of schedule, ranked 29th out of 130 schools. Look at their strength production. Solid, okay strength production. You combine these two things, that's why Arkansas is ranked number 8. Notre Dame. Notre Dame beat a team that was undefeated with Purdue. Now Purdue sits at 2-1 with that loss. Beat a 1-2 Toledo, and beat a Florida State team that is currently winless. But looking at their strength production, I don't think it's the highest we've seen so far, but this combination of ranked number 30 and such low strength production, really tough teams are playing because those teams are putting up a lot of yardage and have pretty great defenses, and their strength of schedule is really great. So combine those two things. That's why Notre Dame is ranked so high on here. Notre Dame not too far off because the AP polls are ranked number 12, but with those two stats, I mean, I could say early on, maybe Notre Dame is a little underrated. But again, only 3 games worth of data. We'll need more data to really determine that. Heading to a team that I think we should really look at here. BYU, they are 3-0. All 3 of their wins are over Power 5 schools with the Pac-12. Now, if you don't respect the Pac-12, here's something interesting. They still have USC on the schedule. They still have, I believe, Washington State in the schedule. And they, I think, who else do they have? They have, I think, Baylor. They have South Florida. I mean, a good chunk of their schedule is made of Power 5 school. So even though they're not they're an independent team, looking at this, strength of schedule, great strength of schedule, ranked 31 at 130 schools. So we're talking almost top 25 in strength of schedule, which is really tough. And then the strength of production. These teams, even though these teams may not have the best of records, these teams are putting up great stats, and that's why we have them ranked so high. I know they're ranked number 15? Yeah, 15 in the AP polls. Probably should ranked up higher and have a real opportunity to make a stamp on the playoff committee. So really interesting to watch. Really early in the season. But do not sleep on the Cougars. I don't know. I mean, it's only 3 games in, but showing a lot of promise. And here's the other thing. They don't have great stats on their own. Look at their total offense. Total offense, 84. Total defense, 87. Not a great team statistically, but strength of schedule, strength of the year, beating great teams. I mean, the best teams, I would say, playing in the Pac-12 conference. So, but, all right, let's keep this going. Moving on to a team that, oh my goodness, should have lost, had every reason to lose to Colorado. Carl Durrell just finding ways to blow things. My goodness. So, anyways, give credit where credit's due. It is tough to go in there with not only a freshman quarterback, but your backup quarterback, because your freshman quarterback got hurt. So, I mean, not only are you in disadvantage playing this brand new quarterback, you have not to go to backup, because even your best quarterback, because your freshman, gets hurt and you still pull out the win over to Colorado. You go on, still beat New Mexico. Strength schedule, really great. 28th. Strength production, solid. So those two stats combined with this 3-0 record, pretty great for Texas A&M. So ranked number 5. I think this might be our most accurate, right? Because Texas A&M is ranked number 7, so within 2 spots. Very close. Are they underrated, overrated? Within 2 spots, it's really hard to say. But right now, why don't we just say Texas A&M is a little underrated, just a smidge. So a team that really surprised me, and again, within 2 spots of the actual rankings, they're ranked number. Actually, within 1 spot. This is the closest team I have accurate on here, and that's with Iowa. Iowa is really surprising me, but a team that I did not expect to be ranked so high, Iowa State, they went in and beat their rival school. They beat Indiana, plays in Big Ten. They beat Penn State, which is 1-2. But look at this. Strength of schedule, I want to say the highest so far, right? 27. Let's see. I don't think anybody 28, 29. Yeah, the toughest strength of schedule we've seen so far. And look at the strength of production. These teams could play. They have some of the best total offense, total defense combined, these three teams, and it gives a strength production of 16. That is incredible. So, yeah, with this type of schedule being 3-0, and again, Iowa State looks to be a really good team. We'll see if they continue to climb back up the rankings. They are ranked number 4. And here's a more interesting stat. It's their defense that's getting it done. Not only they're playing strength production like this high, but they are ranked number 22nd in defense, and their offense is 119, which means they can't move the ball, but my goodness, will they stop you when it counts. That's what this says about Iowa. So really, really interesting team to look at. I don't know what to say. Let's just say, sure, they're underrated. Why not? With these stats, that is incredible. A team that I don't think anybody has in their top 10 polls, let alone top 5. This is Michigan, ranked number 19 in our AP polls. Beating Western Michigan, beating a Pac-12 school with Washington. Washington, who lost a Division II school, is pretty interesting, but they are a Power 5 school. And then beating Northern Illinois, combining all three. I don't know if I said Western Washington earlier. I meant to say Western Michigan. If I did say that, I do apologize. And look at this. Very, very, very tough strength of schedule. Ranked number 24. So your strength schedule worthy of a top 25 team. And strength production also ranked number 25. So, I mean, great, great wins. And you see and here's something that's interesting as well. Look at this number here. It's 0.42 versus 0.19. Basically, the stats that they're producing, the difference between Michigan from where they're currently ranked compared to where they are supposed to be ranked down here around 19. I mean, they're producing twice as much as these teams down here. So that should say a lot about Michigan. Team that I will say, at least early on, very underrated looking at these stats. And here's another thing. Not only are they getting it done against the team, look at their production. Number 16 total offense, number 26 total defense. Jim Harbaugh, sorry. Get those brothers confused. Not only are playing really great teams so far, but they're putting up great stats against those teams. So, I mean, should Michigan be ranked number top 3? It's hard to say, but are they underrated? Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Here's a team, again, not too far off. In our AP polls, Penn State is ranked number 6. I have them here at number 2. Big reason why they moved up so high was beating Auburn, who again, remember, was undefeated going into that game. So beating Auburn, who was a top 25 in the AP polls, are they still ranked? Yeah, still ranked at top number 23. Probably should have dropped a little more, but anyways, it's the SEC bias. I don't know, because Auburn is nowhere near to be found here. And in fact, before we jump further into this, let's look at the SEC teams that are ranked that shouldn't be ranked. Auburn has a negative, schedule, ranked number 50. Yeah, Auburn should not be. If you lose to Penn State and your wins over a Division II school in Akron, you have no business talking to being in the top 25. So even though I just hyped them up, Penn State beating them, and you look at Auburn's opponents, I think this is pretty accurate. It shows that, yes, Penn State had a good win, but also this team, there's such a huge disparity of where they're ranked versus where they're showing up here. So, Auburn, a lot of the SEC teams, a few of these teams are pretty overrated. But let's go back to the team we were just talking about, Penn State. Look at this. The teams that are playing, the reason Penn State is doing so well is because their strength of production, the teams that are playing, ranked number 3, which means that out of 130 schools, they've played their strength of production number 3. The teams that are playing have some of the best offenses and best defense. That's why they're ranked so high. That's ranked number 2. And strength of schedule, a top 25 for strength of schedule, ranked number 21. Very well deserving. We'll say they're overrated. They are underrated. I'll say that early on. Looks like that. You can't say, even though I can't stand the SEC, that I'm biased, because here we are. The stats do not lie. Georgia is currently, and I'll go on a limb and say, at this point in time, Georgia is better than Alabama at this point in time of the season. I won't say for the entire season. We'll see how it happens when they eventually do face up, assuming they both run the table and either meet in their title game. I don't know if they have a schedule against regular season. I don't think they are due, but if they do, yeah. Big reason why is they have the highest combined merger of strength of production ranked number 9 and strength of schedule ranked number 11. Looking at those two stats, looking at who they beat Clemson, they beat UAB, they beat South Carolina. Look at these records. Each one of these teams 2-1. A lot of these teams have played Division II schools, right? They haven't. A lot of these teams have played, winless teams with losing records. They haven't. They absolutely deserve to be ranked number 1. They have every reason to. If you're looking at their schedule, let's compare them to who's actually there. I know they're ranked number 2 in the AP polls, but let's rank them to the team everyone's thinking about with Alabama, who I have here at number 12, right? Who are you more impressed by? Yes, Alabama beat Florida, right? But Georgia beat Clemson. So let's say those teams are equal in value, right? Georgia hasn't played Division II school, and they played Miami, which, again, has a losing record. So if you're looking at right now these two teams, Georgia's your better team. So suck on that, Bama fans. But jokes aside, this really shows the interesting dynamic of how these rankings, looking at opponents' wins and losses and their opponents' wins and losses, looking at opponents with their total offense, total defense, and their opponents' total offense, total defense, meshing all together. That's why we get the rankings we get. I would say about half of these are pretty close to where they should be, where the other half are varying wildly and looking at more at trends. So, again, give this another 2 to 3 weeks. I would say in 3 weeks, we should really have a good gauge and getting something really close to what you see in the AP polls. And that's what we'll really be able to decipher if teams are overrated or underrated. But for now, I just think it's fun to kind of see things right now. You definitely get some perspective, on certain teams of where they're trending. So, yeah. But this is the end of our show. I appreciate you all watching. Again, I encourage you, if you are at any point stop by, make sure you say something in the chat. We'll keep this going. We'll talk about any team you want to talk about. But for now, appreciate you guys all watching. Catch me next week where we go over new rankings, new data, and we will really determine, is the SEC overrated? Is the Pac-12 underrated? Is the ACC overrated? And answer the last one, yes. Always, every year, very overrated. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Goodbye, everybody.